Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Three Stooges podcast. We're three normal guys. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We take our job seriously. We are otherwise known as public nuisances, sometimes in our own houses. Joe Davidson, Sacramento Bee, Chris Jackson, West Coast Preps, Jordan Georgeson of Gold Country Media. If we sound like we're a little hoarse and froggy, it's because we've been battling the flu. I think Jordan has escaped. It's the beard. Nothing invades the beard. But Chris lost his voice over the weekend at Sac Joaquin Section Championships. I'm still laboring here, but we soldier on. It's good stuff. And Chris, hope you're feeling better. Jordan, you always look like you're fine. The young people they overcome this stuff. The older people, whatever. And I'm not aging Chris at all. So can we hear you, Chris? I mean, are you
I
alive?
I think my voice is probably 90-95%. By the end of that McClatchy game, what was that Friday night, the 6 p.m. D1 girls game, I couldn't even ask a question in the press conference. I felt so bad. I'm like, I can't freaking talk. Then
I know. I've been
we
there.
go out to dinner after, and I'm like, I can't really say anything. I got to start showing people on my notes app what I want to say. And I'm just like, this is wasting so much time.
No, that's crazy. And Jordan survived it, and but it's going out there and all the people we run into. And so today we've got another great show. We're going to talk about competitive equity and what it means and why I think it's the thing that we need to have for high school athletics. Because before competitive equity, if you base it only on Northern California or if you only base it on enrollment base, we had brutal beatdowns in Northern California football playoffs, basketball playoffs, baseball, softball. Um, there are certainly arguments for both ways. We'll get that in a second. But first of all, I want to give a game ball to Chris Horner, who is the football coach at Casa Roble High School. Jordan and I were both there at Casa Roble last night for a NorCal Division IV playoff opener, 12 Bridges of Placer County taking on the home Casa Roble Rams of Orangevale. And it was a great event, great game, great energy, great crowd. And then there was debris on the floor, and they had to stop the game and clean it up. And then Chris Horner, the football coach, the spirited football coach, comes zipping across all the way over to the rooting section for his home school, Casa Roble. And he's up there pointing at a kid and said, "Come on down." And I asked Horner afterwards, what was, and he ejected him. And he said, "You're out," and put him out the side door. Might have put him in the trash bin, I'm not sure, or the dumpster. And he said later that he looked over and the kid was throwing stuff. He was throwing debris. And no good. You're going to get caught. You're going to get ejected. So Chris Horner not going to allow that to be a problem at a games there. But Casa Roble looked pretty strong, beat 12 Bridges. Jordan, did you see that? Did you catch wind of what was going on there amid all of your multitasking?
I did, and it's funny. I actually told Chris it was one of the things that stood out to me. I said I was almost scared for the kid because his rage was so strong coming across the court. I was like, "Am I in trouble?" Like, I mean, it just kind of he gave off the vibe like, if you were in his path, you were going to be getting tossed too. He was, I think that's the angriest I've ever seen Horner, and I know you guys cover him a little more than I do, but kudos to him for pointing that out. And yeah, I mean, don't be the guy chucking debris onto the court. Nobody likes it. I jokingly said, I think to your photographer, Joe, I said that was the most united I've seen this crowd all night was when they tossed the kid that threw the debris on the court because nobody likes that guy. So, don't be the guy that throws debris on the court during a game and celebration and anger, whatever it is. Just don't be that guy.
Exactly right. No good, no bueno. So my thoughts on competitive equity and the CIF governing body has implemented that in recent years to try to avoid some of the beat down early rounds when it's just based on enrollment. And so in our section, the Sac Joaquin section, the second largest 10 sections of the state, there are enrollment-based playoffs across the board. And then all of the sections are a little bit different. Some do that, some do enrollment. I am a fan, if that's the right word, of competitive equity. I think there's always need for tweaks, and I thought we saw that this season for high school girls and boys, NorCal regionals, Colfax girls winning another section championship. They're going to get put way up, but no, they're a 3 seed in Division Three. I think they'll hold their own. The Falcons of Placer County, Rockland boys Division Two, top seed after winning a section in Division Two, so that's certainly favorable. Intercom boys basketball loses a section semifinal to Folsom. Folsom wins the section championship, is in the open division, takes on De La Salle on Saturday. What about Endercom? Number one seed in Division One. So very favorable there. I'm sure you guys have examples too. And if you look at the scores last night, guys, this is what we're talking about. So this is, I'm just going to zip through some. Boys Division One. Here's some of the scores: 61-56, 71-67, 57-46, 84-76, 65-61, 59-46. Wow, those are Division One. Division Two, Rockland 70-60 over Bullard. Another game, 59-45, 64-50, 59-55, 67-61, right on down the line. Same with the girls, a lot more competitive. It would, if it was enrollment based only, we might have running clocks. And then you know what the grumpy people say, come on, CIF, be better. Well, this is better. I defer to you two and let you debate from here on yay or nay. And I think the CIF seating selection, they are open to ideas and tweaking and making sure a section champion maybe gets a home game and things like that. But Chris Jackson, your thoughts on this and how do they come up with, I think they rank all of these teams
They
and put
do.
them in order. And so if you could explain that a little bit. And then Jordan, I know you have some thoughts on this. You've reported on this, excellent reporting for Gold Country Media the last couple of years on what it means and why people have issues and concerns with this.
Now, let me go through those upsets first. That's one of the reasons why I think they like the system is because you'll get 16 seeds beating the one, right? D1 girls, you've got San Joaquin Memorial beats top seeded Folsom. You go elsewhere down in girls, right? The 11 seed O'Dowd beats 6 seed Reardon. D2 girls, number 13 seed Redwood goes on the road to Stockton. Maya Seibel, just a great multi-sporter, field hockey, basketball, has a big game. They win at Lincoln. D3 girls, you have the 12 seed Menlo Atherton over number 5 seed Ponderosa. D4 girls, Castillejo, the 13 seed goes to Riverbank. The 4 seed gets fouled with 3.5 seconds left, makes both free throws, wins by one. And then also in that division, top seeded Liberty Ranch. Their historic section final last week, right? Under Josh Williams. We saw what they could do. They held on against Calusa, the 16 seed. And boys, right? The 13 seed Liberty from Brentwood goes to Clovis North, wins that game. You've got 14 seed Enterprise, wins, beats 3 seed Christopher, 15 seed Lincoln and San Francisco, beats 2 seed Westmont by 11 in D4. D5, you had a 12 seed beat a 5 seed also. Small town Weed, way up there in Northern California, beats Middletown, way up there as well. So I think they like the upsets a lot. I mean, that's why it's called March Madness. I like that stuff a lot. I love the competitive games. I don't think this is a perfect system. Now, a guy that I used to work in Texas and saw their system. We're never going to have a system like theirs because theirs is different. They go, I mean, it's enrollment based, division based, all that stuff, but it's also it's a weird system. You go by district, area, and then it's like a 1 seed faces a 4 seed from a separate district right near them. You face off in the first round to get a by district trophy. We're never going to have that system, but I think the biggest thing that people gripe about is the uniformity or lack thereof. Right, some sections have open division, and if they do, the CCS has pool play for open division, NCS just has bracket play. Southern section's got the pool play. Sac Joaquin does not have the open division, so obviously, right, you're seeding teams differently. You're not ranking teams, and you go down to SoCal, right? They're the ranking teams. The bad part about this in this system is still you're going to kind of get that situation where it feels like a participation trophy where, oh, great, you went 0-10, but you still make a section playoffs, like in SoCal, right? San Diego, St. Augustine goes 0-10 in football and makes the playoffs somehow because of just pure ranking system in their system. Yes, they did go all the way. They made a run, won a D3 section title, yes, but how do you get a chance at 0-10? That just doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel like you've earned that right to play and move on. And it's St. Pius. We saw them play Sonora in the state football championship, but they go 1-9 in the regular season, win a D8 Southern Section crown, and they just because you go 1-9, you get a chance to go in the postseason. That's the stuff that doesn't make sense. I love the good matchups. I love when it's close. I mean, personally, I think for all of us, it's better to cover close games, right? I think for everybody, fans alike, you want closer games. It's more fun, get more crowds involved. You just never know what's going to happen. But the downside is just the way some of this goes. And we've seen in other areas like SoCal's just, I mean, like the biggest examples I mentioned 0-10, 1-9, those are small examples in terms of small, not a whole lot of those teams make that kind of run go there, but that's what happened. But I think the biggest thing is that they want more uniformity across sections. And also there is the whole, if you win a section championship, should you get a home game? I know the talk around Angels camp, right? We saw Brett Hart scores also win the D5 girls section title. They get bumped up to D4 and get the 15 seed, or no, not the 15, the 12 seed, and have to go to Mills, lose that game. Their season's over. But the team they beat in the section final ends up getting a 2 seed in a lower division and has a better chance at making a run, which, yes, you get the section title. That's kind of the big thing everybody strives for. It's all gravy on top after that. But there are those tweaks that I think need to be made. There's always going to be tweaks. We see it in college football. We always talk about after 1 year, the new playoff, we're already talking about, do we need tweaks? Do we need tweaks? How do we fix this? There's already talks of maybe a 14 team or a 16 team. This system is good in some ways, but it needs tweaking. And I think probably these are some of the biggest tweaks that need to be made, or the biggest things I've also been told by coaches and people I've spoken with of, hey, this is what we love. And if you win a section title, maybe there should be some sort of reward for a home game or something instead of a Bret Hart getting a 12 seed and getting bumped up a division and all that. Now it is a badge of honor to be like, hey, you're ranked better than your division. That's cool. When you go open division, it's like, hey, that's a badge of honor. Cool. You're better than these teams. But at the same time, I think these teams would like more games to play together and make those runs too. So it's apples and oranges on what you like better. And I'm sure what system we're working on a system, James and I at West Coast Preps work. I know this is a long spiel, but just a lot of my thoughts on it. We're working on a story on how to fix or just maybe correct the system, some upgrades, and write out a system we think could work. So we'll have something after the postseason, but I'm sure whatever we create is not going to be university liked by everybody.
No, and Jordan, before I defer to you, we're just to refresh. We're talking about competitive equity. Does it work? Does it make sense? Should there be tweaks? The one thing that's good about the governing body, CIF, whether it's the statewide office or the 10 sections in California, is they're always open door. They're always open to ideas and getting better and adding things. And just a quick review, the state basketball tournament only started in 1981. And a big reason it got going was because of Bill Cartwright. He was class of 1975, Elk Grove High School, when Elk Grove had 4,500 students. Now Elk Grove has more than nearly 200,000. Chris Jackson's a resident of Elk Grove. And my point being, he was so great as a high school All-American in 1970, as a 7-footer national recruit, the NBA, the ABA, they were looking to draft big guys then to get a head start, and they were looking at Bill Cartwright, and he was so spectacular as a senior, junior and senior with powerhouse teams that they played in the Northern California Tournament Champions, which is down there in Oracle, which used to be the home for the Golden State Warriors, and that's what helped get the ball rolling for a state basketball tournament. We have to have this state go not just Northern California, Southern California, and then the Open division was created for girls and boys basketball in 2012 or 13. And then the competitive equity has been along there around that same time too. So, Jordan, you've reported on this. It seems unfair and unbalanced. And a lot of times coaches and fans are conditioned to think, oh, everybody's against us. And, the referees, the CIA. No, these things are really hard to do. It's hard enough to seed a section tournament, even harder to seed a NorCal tournament. But Jordan, your thoughts on competitive equity in general? What is it that you've written about before? What is it that you like about these seedings? And what is it that you would like to see still tweaked and worked on?
I think the big thing for me is, I've been fortunate enough to cover Colfax's last 2 runs to the state championship game. They were Division 4 at the time. First year in 2023, they get moved up to Division 3. And, they griped about competitive equity and getting moved up. But what did they do? They went and won a NorCal title. They lost to Los Osos, and this is where it gets fishy. They lost to a school that had more students than the town of Colfax has people. And obviously that upset some people up there, and I understand it. That would leave a bitter taste in my mouth too if I'm up there, especially with a small school. And then what happens last year? They're just as good last year. Instead, as a D4 school, they go, actually, you guys are in Division 2. And, they could sulk and moan about it. And instead, what do? They go win a NorCal title again. They gave up a home game to go play somewhere on the road so their star basketball and soccer player could play in both games because she had to be in the Bay Area. area. So they made no excuses there. They won a NorCal title. They go up to Pleasant Valley last year in the NorCal title and beat them there. And then their reward is they have to play against Harvard Westlake, who's normally a national powerhouse. It was just on a down year. And I think that was the year that really felt like I don't want to say necessarily they got slighted, but it just kind of felt wrong, where it's like, what's Colfax doing on a court with Harvard Westlake? And I understand that, but I think at the surface, competitive equity works. Like you said, Joe, we see these scores from last night, and Chris, you mentioned it too. And we didn't mention the close calls. Wood Creek, a 15 seed, almost beat Milpitas. Rockland was down at halftime as a 1 seed. It's not uncommon to see 1 seeds go down in the first or second round in this tournament. In fact, I would almost argue that half the 1 seeds are usually gone by the time we get to Saturday, because these brackets are just that close most years. And I think there's some tweaks that could be made to it, because a situation like that happened with Bret Hart, happened to Bear Rivers girls last year. They win a section championship in overtime by 2 points, and their reward is they get moved up to the 15 seed in Division 4 and have to go to Arcata on a Tuesday night, which is just a brutal turnaround when you already have only have a day to prepare. Where Valley Christian, the team they beat by 2, got a 3 seed, I believe, in Division 5. So, I understand the fans are upset, saying, hey, 2 points is the difference between a 3 seed in Division 5 versus the 15 in Division 4. But I think for the most part, they do a good job. I think some things I would like to see changed with it are, I'd like to see a little more transparency with how some of these brackets are made and where these rankings are. Because, even looking at the D2 girls bracket up right now, Carruthers got the number 1 seed in D2 girls. Great program, has been a great program for a long time. Carruthers is the number 101 ranked team in the state on Max Preps. The 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, 5 seed, I believe 6 and 7 seeds are all ranked higher than Carruthers on Max Prep. So I'd like to see a little bit of transparency of how did we get to this conclusion of this team being, the 1 seed here. And to be completely honest, even so, people aren't saying you're a homer for your local teams. Rockland too is a team that kind of surprised me of getting the 1 seed in Division 2. I slated them as a Division 1 team going into the state tournament. They get put in Division 2. So again, I just like to see that. And then I'd like to see maybe them make a rule of you can only go up or down 1 division. And if you're moving up a division, you should still be guaranteed at least 1 home game. Outside of that, though, I think as a whole, competitive equity does work. We've seen teams, there's 2 ways you can go about competitive equity. You can see teams kind of roll over and take it, and sometimes you have to just tip your hat to a better team. Like Bret Hart last night, a great season. They just played a better team. That happens sometimes. But I've also seen teams where rather than complain about competitive equity, they go and stick it to their opponents. Colfax girls the last 2 years, 12 Bridges football gets moved up to Division 2, and they beat Wilcox, and they just happened to run into a buzzsaw in the championship game. But we've seen time and time again Grant football continuously has gotten moved up and keeps winning state titles. So Oakmont baseball, I believe, is kind of in a similar situation where they were, I want to say D4, and they won a D3 title. So it's not like it's impossible, but I think the big complaint that I see, and I think is a fair point that maybe needs to be addressed, is someone brought up, you don't really have these rural small towns in Southern California the way that you do up here in Northern California, to where, the northern section schools or your foothill schools and stuff like that. What's Division 4, Division 5, Division 6 out here in Southern California, that looks completely different. That those Division 4, Division 5 schools in SoCal are the equivalent of a D2, D3 up here. And I think that's a fair argument and maybe something we need to address. But at the same time, it's a big state. There are a lot of schools, and there's only so much you can do. And at the end of the day, if you take care of your business and play your game, the wins will come. I've never seen a team win state titles that I'm like, they didn't deserve to be here, because they won their games to get there. And sure, you can question some of the seedings, but we see double-digit seeds with bad records that just play tough schedules go and prove it and make runs to the state tournament. I want to say Oakland or Oakland Tech a couple years ago. They were a 10 seed, I believe, when they made that run.
But
So
those schools always they schedule tough, right? They schedule tough, and that's why they do it. Now, I think you've got to win some games right now. Those teams, they've got the reason to be there, unlike the football 0 and 10 and stuff. The
yeah.
biggest advice you can get in life or anything is no excuses, right? There's just no
And
excuses.
Colfax,
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. The coach of my alma mater, two of their top three players have been hurt all year. They go on the road and beat Kansas in Allen Fieldhouse with all the stuff that happens there, and he says no excuses. I'm not
yeah.
going to complain. Nobody else is going to complain. And if you're still complaining on Monday and Tuesday before your playoff games about the system in your seating, well, then you're wasting energy. And I'm sorry, but you're going to lose that game because you've wasted so much energy and you're complaining. And I'm sure your players get that sense too of this isn't fair. This isn't fair. Instead of acting like a Colfax and a Rexan or a Grant football being like, hey, we want the best. Give us the freaking best. You can't have that excuses mindset going into ball games or in life.
Well,
And
and I think coaches. Go ahead, Chris.
no, that's it. That's my whole rant right there.
Think
We
you
have,
froze.
I think Joe's frozen on us.
I can
Oh,
see it.
there we go.
I think coaches will fight for their kids because they want what's fair and what's right. And they're like a parent figure and a role model figure to try to help what's right for their kids. So you can see the passion there. But it's true. Sometimes it's wasted energy to complain and bemoan, and nobody's out to get anybody. It's the most tired act from fans, assistant coaches, players, head coaches where they think the referees are out to get them or the CI. It's just wasted energy. Nobody's in these board meetings, these seedings meetings going, let's stick it to the CI. Let's stick it to the Sac Joaquin section schools and this and that. So here's a question too. And I get this asked every once in a while. I guess a relative answer, I believe, is, well, what's the big difference if Colfax with 600 enrollments taking on a school of 2,500? I mean, you can only play 5 kids at a time. Well, if you have 600 kids and maybe half of them are girls, that's your talent pool. If you're from Los Osos or Harvard Westlake and you got 2,500 kids, then half of those are girls. So the picking pool is a lot greater and bigger. So I could see that as well. But the competitive equity has saved these playoffs more than they have not. We go through all of these brackets and all of these tight games, and that's a perfect example with the one seeds getting pushed and trailing at halftime, or the Folsom girls losing by 10 to a 16 seed. So, all right, let's go real quick over Division One. All of these games are found on the CIF state site, the sacbee.com, West Coast Preps, uh, and Jordan's got all the schedules and results as well for Gold Country Media. So if we're looking at boys Division One, so again, in comes the top seed. So let's just go straight to Thursday's quarterfinals. Number 8 seeded Oakland Tech at Intercom is a game of note. Another team of the Sac Joaquin section interest, the second seeded Lincoln Trojans of Stockton taking on number 11 Moreau Catholic. We all know about Intercom. They're 29-2, fantastic. One loss in section. That was to a semifinal last week in Division One to Folsom. Folsom put on a clinic. Folsom's playing at De La Salle on Saturday in an open division semifinal. Chris Jackson, have you seen Oakland Tech? You know about Oakland Tech? And is Intercom in a threat to lose this game, or is this Intercom's bracket to run away with?
I was there, what was it, January when there was that showcase. It was, I don't know, right after. It was when that 3-day weekend was, whenever it was in January, I think mid-January. Intercom stuck it to Oakland Tech. Now, Oakland Tech's always built for this time of year. They're tough. Corriga Hart, who was an alum of the school, I mean, his guys are always ready. He schedules the best. His teams always come back. I don't know how many games of theirs I covered living in the Bay Area that they had double-digit comeback wins. It was pretty remarkable. He's got Ardarius Grace and he's got a few other studs. And there comes a tough matchup, just the length and athleticism, and we saw that in that game. Then maybe watching film, and I don't think there's many coaches that can motivate
Chris
kids.
Sproul, there you are.
I don't know if there's many coaches that can motivate kids like Coach Hart can at Oakland Tech. So maybe that can counteract some of that, what Intercom does so well. But I don't know if that's gonna happen. I just think Intercom's got that matchup on paper. But I mean, Oakland Tech's proven people wrong. They've proven people wrong many, many years. Last year they won a state title. So who am I to say that they won't win this game? And go from what, a 26-point loss the first meeting to winning
Well,
this
not
one.
only that, but Oakland Tech is, yeah, well, let's face it, there's some of the city schools with tough backgrounds and the Grant Pacers, the Burbank Titans and 3,500 Florida, they are motivated by what they do have, each other, a goal, and what they don't have. They don't have comfort and affluent neighborhoods like the others on the outlining areas. So they've got a lot to prove. They want to do it for public schools and city schools and all that. So that'll be interesting. All right, Division II boys. We're gonna go right to the quarterfinals of Thursday home sites. Number 8 Clayton Valley Charter of Concord at number 1 Rockland. Another game of note: the Midi Monarchs of San Jose at Jesuit, and then Oakland at Destiny Christian. How about that? So Jesuit, we know, is battle tested from the Sierra Foothill League, split with Folsom. I think split with Rockland, so that's a dangerous team. Jesuit loses to Rockland in the final dramatic seconds of the Division II section championships the other night. We were all kind of mortified about how quick that game turned. And then Destiny Christian, very talented, lost to Jesuit in the section semifinal. Destiny Christian's the former Capital Christian. And then deferring to you here, Georgeson, the number 1 Rockland Thunder, number 1 seed, winning that section championships the other night, might be the farewell season for Coach Steve Taylor. If that's the case, boy, is he bowing out with a great team here, Jordan. This is a bracket that Rockland can win.
Absolutely is. This is probably his best team since the Brendan Lane days of 2009. That team went to a state title. I want to say they went something like 34-2 that year, and both of their losses were the same school, Eisenhower, down in LA. They might have had 3 losses, but either way, I know 2 of them were to that team. This might be his best group since then, and they have the luxury of, for the next month, if they go the distance, the only places they'll be playing are their home campus and Golden One Center. So that's a pretty nice luxury to have, where you're sleeping in your bed every night. A lot of people don't realize it, but when these central section schools are coming up, like Bullard of Fresno had to do, or a northern section school, something like that, a lot of times these are overnight trips, or these are getting on the bus at 10:30 in the morning or something like that. Sometimes I remember a few years ago, there was a school that played Colfax that didn't even go back in between games. They had to go, it was Lassen, they had to go to the central section, and they just stayed in Colfax on their way back up because they're like, we're not going to drive all the way back to Susanville and then back down. So having that home court advantage is huge. This Clayton Valley game is a good test, and I know people may be concerned with Rockland getting pushed by Bullard, but this is kind of how they've played all year. They've grinded out some tough games and some gritty wins. They had to grind out that opening win against Rodriguez in the playoffs. They fended off a buzzer beater attempt from Sac High in the second round. They ran through Wood Creek, but then the comeback against Jesuit, going through Bullard. So, as much as they're not necessarily winning pretty, they're finding ways to win. And that's a mark of a good team sometimes. There are teams that, the Kansas State Chiefs went to the Super Bowl winning ugly the entire season. So I think this is a very good Rockland team. I would be shocked if this Clayton Valley game is a blowout. I think it's going to go down to the wire, but this is absolutely a team that can make a run to a state championship game. And to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if they run into a couple Sac Joaquin section opponents on the way there. They can meet Destiny on Saturday. There's a potential for a Jesuit rematch, round 4 between them in the NorCal title. The Sac Joaquin is well represented in this division.
I think it's excellent. Okay, boys NorCal Division III, we have the second seeded Christian Brothers Falcons of Sacramento, the pride of Oak Park, coming off a section championship conquest, inspired by the coach who's not with them, Jermaine Brown. He's had health issues. He's had many strokes. He had one last week. We wrote about it. Chris Jackson wrote about it. The team under Coach Underwood, an interim coach who's a long time with the program, they played inspired. They played together. They have so much to play for. This is a beloved coach on campus. And so that's a great storyline there. Number 7, Carmel of the Monterey area, coming up to Christian Brothers on Thursday. Chris Jackson, what a story for these kids to hang in there for their coach who was at the hospital. They saw him the night before the game. They saw him the night after their game. They brought the party there, they said. How do you not root and feel good for a bunch of kids who have gone through so much in the Christian Brothers Falcons, and kudos to them for their resolve and their leadership and finding a way.
And we found out before tip off on what was that Friday afternoon. I mean, we were heartbroken hearing about that because Jermaine Brown's one of the great guys. He played at Burbank. He's one of his mentors. He's always said is Lindsey Farrell, the great head coach of Burbank, and over 500 wins, girls and boys. That he had a couple of strokes last year. He comes back, has another health setback. Unfortunately, it was so great to see him FaceTime the team at the podium, and they all get that moment. You hear all the players just yelling, "Is that Coach Jay? Is that Coach Jay?" And they go from Golden One to celebrating with Coach Jay, and he still gets the smile and celebrate with those guys who won for him. But I can't imagine a guy in their young 40s going through what he's gone through and to still be here, to still want to coach, to still want to be there for his family and these kids and everything else, I think says everything. And for all the kids to want to see him, I think says everything about who Coach Shea is. It was Cam Nero, the football basketball guy at the podium, said after the game, he said it's bigger than basketball at this point. And that's exactly right. It was great to see them win, but we're all still thinking about Coach Dane. Just simply put, I just hope he's okay. That's that's far more important than me mentioning how the rest of these playoffs can go.
That's exactly right. Boys Division Four. Um, Looking at Thursday's quarterfinals, home sites, number 8 seeded Natomas lost the section finals in a great game to Casa Robles, so they get the number 8 seed. They're at Priory, the number 1 seed. And then Lincoln of San Francisco, a 15 seed with a big win over the 2 seed. They're going to play at Casa Robles. Casa Robles went winless 5 years ago, 0-27 in 2020. That's on the bottom, and they kept working at it. And then here they are, first time section champions, first time ever in a NorCal game, first time NorCal winner. This is a school that's been in the San Juan Unified School District since 1966, so tremendous staying power there. So that's their going on in Division Four. Division Five, really quick as we zip through these. Number 12 Weed Thursday quarterfinal at Fortune of Sacramento, one of the newer schools in recent years. Argonauts in this tournament as well. And then we're going to jump into girls Division One. We do not have, let's see, Folsom girls are out, losing to a 16 seed Memorial of Fresno. And Oak Ridge is also out of El Dorado Hills. Clovis of Fresno area, 63-52 winner over Coach Steve White and Oak Ridge. So there's no locals left except for St. Mary's of Stockton. In the quarterfinals, the Rams will host number 5 Prairie. Division Two, seeing if we have anybody of note. Yes, we're going to defer to Jordan right here. So Thursday quarterfinals, NorCal Division Two, we have the number 3 seeded Colfax Falcons taking on Salesian of Richmond. That is a powerhouse program that's been in the open division. It's won open division games. Can Colfax hang? What's going on here? We kind of touched on this with competitive equity. Yes, they're going to hang. And look what they did in their opener. Beat Clovis East 64-37. Competitive equity. Who's the better team? So that fit well there. And Jordan, going back to Rick Sand Symptom and the Gritty Falcons, they don't fear anybody. They just play whoever's up in front of them. But Rexan talked about this after the game when they three-peated as section champions, Jordan. The tough challenge now is is the unknown. You're preparing for teams you hardly know anything about, or you may not know anything about. You're not sure what town they're from, what league, what division, what their enrollment, what their players, and all that. So there's a scramble by the coaches to try to figure out what's going on in quick order because no coach wants to feel unprepared. So how about that, Jordan? And it looks like Colfax has got another shot as a 3 seed to host a home game and win a home game.
Absolutely. And that drive from Richmond to Colfax is a long one, especially on a weekday. I've done it before, and what is supposed to be hour and a half to 2 hour drive can end up feeling like 3 hours. So you're going to get kids with tired legs coming from Salesian, but this is a powerhouse program, a team that by all means should be expected to battle Colfax. Whitney tested them the other day. If you look at their records against common opponents, I believe they've lost to the same teams, they beat to the same teams. I know Colfax beat Whitney at the beginning of the year by like 37 or something like that. Salesian beat them by 7, but obviously this Whitney team was a very different team than what we saw back in November. Outside of that, most are common opponents. The scores are pretty similar. I think this is another one that's going to go right down to the wire. And thankfully for Colfax, they have that home court advantage, and they've taken on the big dogs before. And then I think there's potential that we can see a Sac Joaquin matchup in the NorCal final because I really like the way Atwater is playing right now. I like the way they match up with Sierra Pacific, who, by the way, for those unfamiliar with that program, that I mean, basically Colfax in the Central Section, a small school that has become a powerhouse over the years. Them and Colfax have actually met up a few times. I think they met in the NorCal final a few years ago, or semifinals, something like that. So, I mean, either way, that could be a great potential matchup. Of course, counting the chickens before they hatch, you need to get past the Legion. But yeah, this is a team that they're the epitome of anyone, anytime, anywhere. And I don't think Colfax is going to be intimidated at all by the pedigree that Salesian has in that program.
Girls Division 4 NorCal regionals that continue at home sites Thursday. We have top-seeded Liberty Ranch Hawks of Galt taking on Lowell of San Francisco, the number 9 seed. Here's a inter-regional game. Number 6 Marysville Indians at the number 3 Rio Linda Knights, and number 7 West Campus Sac City Unified playing at number 2 Half Moon Bay. So all kinds of representation there. Chris Jackson, I thought Liberty Ranch played like a real champion the other day at Golden One. First time section championship for that program in general. Josh Williams is the coach. He was the boys coach who had some terrific boys teams that went to NorCal's and just were snake bit at Golden One or on their way to Golden One. So great job by Haley Smith and her terrific team. Haley's only a junior, and they certainly look the part. Marysville, Rio Linda, West Campus. That's a lot of locals. We may have a local versus local in a NorCal Division 4 game, and wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, you've got to like the chances for these teams. You've got to like a chance of a Rio Linda to make a run. West Campus has a couple of stars at the top. Marysville does as well. Demi Boykin, Abby Pites. It's one of the best kind of 1-2 punches in the section, I would say, especially at the D4, D5, D6 level. But Liberty Ranch, you saw the emotions of Josh Williams, their head coach, formerly the boys coach, like you mentioned, in tears, kneeling down. His father was there celebrating, happy as can be with him. And Williams' team finally did it. Liberty Ranch, the newer school in Galt, right? Right off there, about a mile and a half off the freeway. They make this run. Haley Smith is incredible. Her brother was a great athlete there in basketball, now playing D1 football. Kendall Duryea, their 4-year varsity player, whose father was previously the head girls coach before Josh Williams took over. She's had cousins and brothers play through there, and she does it all. She can score, but I don't know if she necessarily wants to score and impact the game that way. She makes so many other plays, passes, rebounds, defends, set screens, you name it. Madison Robbins, their big girl is the fastest girl on their team. How awesome is that? The sophomore, Cameron Blevins, is a great guard. You've got Summer McCoy, who reminds me of, what is it, Gwen Rosick at Sac Adventist. I think she would play on one leg on the court if she had to. That's just the way she plays. So a great story. Great to see in Liberty Ranch is the favorite in D4, but you have to love the Sac Joaquin section flair in that division and how many teams are making a run.
Oh, and I think it's fantastic. And I'm pouring over here. So girls, so the open division plays tonight. Did not play last night to give them a little their own stage. And so the McClatchy Lions playing at Acalanes and Lafayette in the Greater Bay Area. Those two teams played in a Martin Luther King showcase. Acalanes won that game. So here's a chance for McClatchy to go on the road in the open division after winning the Sac Joaquin section championship over Folsom and pulling another win. We certainly know all about Nina Kane. She's headed to the Washington Huskies, dynamic player, Sacramento Bee player of the year last season. I think she's probably on her way to doing it again. So there's a big showdown there. A girls' game of note tonight. Our friend, the judge, Scott Tedman, the former championship coach of Sacramento Adventist, has taken over the girls as an interim. They're the 4 seed, and they host Cornerstone Christian of Antioch. Coach loves his chances. He's got Victoria Fowler who's going to start tonight. They had a tough effort against Faith Christian of Yuba City and the great Lauren Harris in the section finals. Lauren Harris and that powerhouse Faith Christian Lions team win. So they are the 2 seed. They host Round Valley of Covello. This was great about the NorCals. You get these teams and these schools and these towns you don't know anything about. So we research it too. So all kinds of basketball. And then the boys tonight for Division 6, we have Sacramento Waldorf and 700 game winner Dean Stark. Sacramento Waldorf of Fair Oaks is in the game tonight as well. So there's hoops here, there, and everywhere. Boys open Folsom on Saturday at De La Salle. Chris Jackson, what do you think of that Folsom boys at De La Salle? That's a whopper of a game. De La Salle was storied, Folsom is storied, and here we go. And Folsom gets a whole week to prepare for this.
It feels like the way we think when these two play in football, right? The hype, the flair, everything else. That's the way this basketball matchup feels. Folsom is hot. They're playing unbelievable basketball. Chase Rollins, Jovan Delay, the great five-star Rider Lions is just muscling kids left and right, just inside, setting screens, rebounding. He has that nose for the basketball. It's got to be something. He's just got these incredible athletic talents. He said he's the most competitive person there is, and who am I to argue that? He's probably by far the most competitive person to roam the earth. I will say that right now confidently. That's just how great he is at everything he does. But De La Salle is tough. They just steamrolled Salesian in the section championship game. Alec Blair, the Oklahoma baseball basketball signee, is also a star player. Hopefully he's 100% for this game, but that is a big time matchup that we will have.
Oh, Chris is back. Perfect.
Chris, I mean, when you were muted, we thought maybe your wife got fed up with all the rubbish. Maybe, your flu bug came all the way around. Maybe you just were fed up with us and just bailed. I don't know.
And I think it was my Wi-Fi acting up. I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden, I see you guys are frozen. I'm like, is this thing still going? And next thing you
It
know,
did the same
Playing a
thing.
prank on us. He was frozen again.
of
Yeah,
course,
that's funny.
Yeah.
But we were
Do you
just
want
wrapping
to do you
up.
want to hit record again then, Chris? Because I only recorded like 3 seconds.
it
That
says
way
it's
we can
still
like
going.
splice it together.
It says it's still going.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. This is great radio then.
This is great radio. We have faces for radio. And hey, I appreciate you guys. You guys are the gold standard of this next generation of media. You guys do video, you do cameras, you do interviews, previews, analysis, game coverage. I applaud you guys. I've been doing it forever, and it's great to see you guys out there and good to call your friends and as well. For our listeners, we appreciate you. If you have any questions, find us. We're easy to find on social media. We're going to touch on all the topics that are happening in the CIF, whether it's controversial or feel good or all blended together. We appreciate everybody. Our work is everywhere in social media, sacby.com, Gold Country Media, and West Coast Preps. Joe Davidson, for my friends. We'll see you guys real soon.